In 1587, English colonists disappeared without a trace from an island in what we now call North Carolina. They left no bodies, no graves, no signs of struggle, only a single word carved into a tree, a word that has tortured historians, treasure hunters, and ordinary Americans for over 400 years, CROATOAN. Tonight, we explore one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries and ask the question that has haunted us since the day they vanished. What happened to the lost colony of Roanoke? I am Mr. Roney. I hope you will enjoy today's video and discover many unknown facts. Let's begin. The year was 1585. England was awakening to a dangerous dream, the dream of empire across the Atlantic Ocean. Sir Walter Raleigh, a favorite of Queen Elizabeth I, had become obsessed with establishing an English foothold in the New World. He believed that a thriving colony in Virginia, land named in honor of the Virgin Queen herself, could become a fortress of English power, a source of wealth, and a staging ground for privateering expeditions against Spanish ships. Raleigh never set foot in Virginia himself. Instead, he commissioned others to build his vision. The first expedition arrived in 1585, establishing a colony on Roanoke Island, an isolated barrier island off the coast of what is now North Carolina. These men were soldiers, adventurers, and opportunists, not farmers or families seeking permanent settlement. They struggled against unfamiliar crops, hostile relations with local natives, and the crushing reality that the New World was far more dangerous and indifferent than London's courts had promised. By 1587, a new man held the fate of Virginia in his hands. His name was John White, an artist and cartographer commissioned by Raleigh to document the New World and establish a permanent settlement. Unlike the soldiers of 1585, White brought families, women, children, and skilled craftsmen. He was determined to build not just a military outpost, but a true colony. Among the settlers was his own daughter, Eleanor Dare, who was pregnant. White believed that the presence of families would transform Roanoke from a desperate garrison into a genuine English community. He selected Roanoke Island as the site, partly because of its natural defenses and partly because of the hope that local Native American tribes, led by Chief Manteo and his people, might prove more cooperative this time. White was a man of vision and optimism, but he was sailing into a maelstrom he did not fully comprehend. The colony's fate would not be decided by courage or careful planning. It would be decided by forces far beyond his control: disease, starvation, and the collapse of his supply line to England. On August 18, 1587, Eleanor Dare gave birth to a daughter. The child was named Virginia, a name that would echo through history as a symbol of both hope and loss. She was the first English child born in the New World, and her arrival was celebrated as a profound sign that this colony could become permanent. Virginia Dare represented the future, a future where English children would grow up under American skies, where their roots would dig deep into this alien soil, where the dream of a New World colony would become reality. But even as the colonists gathered to celebrate Virginia's birth, the colony was already beginning to unravel. The harvest had been poor, relations with local Native American tribes were deteriorating, supplies sent from England had never arrived, and John White, the colony's governor, faced an agonizing decision. Someone had to return to England to secure additional supplies and reinforcements. The colony's survival depended on it. John White, though reluctant to leave his daughter and the fledgling settlement, knew he had to go. He promised his colonists he would return within a year. He left them with instructions. If they had to abandon the colony, they should carve their destination into a tree or nearby post. If they were in distress, they should mark it with a cross. White departed in late August of 1587, carrying letters home and the burden of abandoning his own family. What John White did not know, what no one could have predicted, was that war was coming to England. In 1588, the Spanish Armada had launched its massive invasion attempt against England. 4 years, every ship that could sail was conscripted into military service. The colonists' supply ships were delayed, And delayed, and delayed. John White waited in England, powerless, as his family waited in Virginia, unaware that help was not coming. 3 years passed, then 4. The silence from Roanoke was absolute and terrifying. John White, now an old man consumed by anguish and guilt, finally secured passage back to Virginia. In 1590, he brought supplies, he brought reinforcements, and he carried the desperate hope that his daughter, his granddaughter Virginia, and the other colonists had somehow survived against impossible odds. But as his ship approached Roanoke Island, White's heart must have sunk. There was no signal fire, no smoke rising from the settlement, no colonists waving from the shore. The island, when they landed, appeared to have been abandoned 4 months, perhaps longer. The palisade had been deliberately dismantled, the buildings had been systematically taken apart, and the colony was a ghost. As John White and his men searched the ruins of the colony, they made a discovery that would haunt history forever. On a nearby tree, carved with deliberate care, were 5 letters: CROATOAN. No cross, no sign of distress, just the name CROATOAN, the name of a nearby Native American tribe, and the island where they lived. But did this carving represent hope or catastrophe? Had the colonists abandoned the settlement voluntarily to join the CROATOAN people? Had they been forced to relocate? Or was this a desperate final message left by desperate people facing annihilation? White wanted to investigate the CROATOAN settlement immediately, but a storm rose up and forced his ship to abandon the search and return to England. John White never returned to Virginia. He died believing his family was lost, the carving his only link to their possible fate. Over the following centuries, historians, archaeologists, and amateur researchers have obsessed over this single word. Some believed it indicated that the colonists had joined the CROATOAN tribe and intermixed with their population. Others theorized that the colonists had been captured or killed. Still others suggested they had migrated inland, leaving Roanoke to be swallowed by the wilderness. The carving became America's first great mystery, a mystery that remains unsolved to this day. For 4 centuries, historians have proposed theories about what happened to the lost colony. The theory of integration suggests that the colonists, realizing they could not survive alone, gradually merged with the CROATOAN tribe. There is evidence supporting this. By the 18th century, several Native American groups in North Carolina and Virginia displayed English surnames and described ancestry connected to English colonists. Some families claimed descent from Eleanor Dare and the other settlers. Archaeological evidence from the CROATOAN settlement sites shows English artifacts and material culture intermingling with Native American goods, suggesting a long period of cohabitation. However, this theory faces challenges. The integration would have had to be remarkably quick and complete. Within 3 years, 117, English colonists would have needed to establish themselves within a Native American society, learn a new language, adopt new customs, and reproduce at rates sufficient to create lasting genealogical traces. Some researchers point to an alternative: disease and starvation within the colony itself. Perhaps the colonists attempted to survive alone on Roanoke 4 years after John White's departure, gradually succumbing to malnutrition, illness, and despair. The systematic dismantling of the settlement's palisade could have been the work of the last survivors, using the wood to construct shelters or to signal desperation. Yet if this were true, archaeologists should have found bodies, remnants of a mass die-off. Instead, they have found little-known mass graves, no skeletal remains consistent with wholesale starvation. The CROATOAN were a real people, a Native American tribe living on CROATOAN Island, located south of Roanoke. They were part of the larger Algonquian-speaking peoples of the Outer Banks, unlike some neighboring tribes that had grown hostile toward English colonists. The CROATOAN, under their leader Manteo, had maintained more peaceful relations with the English. Manteo had even traveled to England, learned the English language, and returned to the New World as a translator and intermediary. When John White carved his instructions into the tree before his departure, he designated CROATOAN Island as a place of refuge. If the colonists were in distress, but still alive, CROATOAN was where they should go. The question that historians face is whether the colonists actually did this, whether they made their way to CROATOAN Island and were absorbed into the tribe's population. In the 18th and 19th centuries, several English travelers and historians reported hearing stories from Native Americans and mixed-race descendants in North Carolina claiming descent from English colonists. Some bore English surnames, some described English ancestry, some even claimed to remember fragmentary English words and phrases. If these accounts are genuine, they suggest that at least some of the colonists survived and integrated into Native American communities. However, oral history is fragile. Stories change across generations. Memory becomes myth, and the evidence remains circumstantial, tantalizing, but not conclusive. Modern archaeology has added both evidence and confusion to the Roanoke mystery. In recent decades, archaeologists have excavated Roanoke Island extensively, searching for remains of the colony tools, pottery, skeletal remains, anything that might reveal the colonists' fate. They have found surprisingly little. A few English artifacts suggest the presence of colonists, but the absence of bodies, graves, or the kind of debris that would indicate a long abandonment is striking. This silence itself is puzzling. If 117 colonists died on the island, where are their remains? If they were killed by disease, starvation, or violence, the archaeological record should reflect this. Instead, the record is eerily quiet. Some researchers interpret this silence as evidence of planned evacuation, that the colonists deliberately abandoned the site and migrated elsewhere, perhaps to CROATOAN Island or into the interior. Others suggest that the passage of time, the work of scavengers, and the harsh climate of the Outer Banks have simply erased the evidence. The truth is that archaeology cannot answer the Roanoke question definitively. The very isolation and harshness of the location that made it a defensible colony also means that any evidence of what happened has been lost to time and nature. We must not lose sight of the human element of this mystery. John White was not merely a governor of a failed colony. He was a grandfather who never saw his granddaughter, Virginia, grow beyond infancy. He was a father who left his daughter Eleanor in a hostile wilderness, promising to return, only to spend the remaining years of his life unable to fulfill that promise. The historical record tells us that John White was devastated by the loss. He wrote letters describing his anguish, his guilt, and his desperate hope that his family had somehow survived. He petitioned the Crown repeatedly for funds to mount a rescue expedition. He never succeeded. Instead, John White spent his final years in relative obscurity, haunted by the carving CROATOAN and the questions it raised. Did Eleanor and Virginia survive? Did they live long lives among the CROATOAN? Did Virginia grow to womanhood in the New World, speaking an Algonquian language, bearing children who would carry English blood into a new generation? Or did they die starving, sick, alone in the isolated settlement? John White died in 1593, less than 3 years after his final visit to Roanoke, taking his answers to the grave. His failure to rescue his family was compounded by the failure of the entire enterprise. The first permanent English settlement in North America would not be established until Jamestown in 1607, 20 years after Roanoke's disappearance. Over 400 years have passed since the colonists of Roanoke vanished. Modern DNA analysis, oral history research, and archaeological innovation have provided some clues, but no definitive answers. What we know is that the colonists did not simply perish en masse on the island. What we suspect is that some, perhaps many, survived by joining or being absorbed into Native American communities. What we must acknowledge is that the historical record has gaps that may never be filled. The mystery of Roanoke has become woven into the fabric of American consciousness. It represents the fragility of human ambition, the cost of colonization, and the resilience of both English settlers and Native American peoples who had to adapt to each other's presence. The word CROATOAN has become America's first great unsolved clue, a message from the past that reaches toward us across centuries, demanding interpretation but offering no certainty. Perhaps this is appropriate. Perhaps a mystery that has endured for over 400 years is meant to endure. What happened to John White's colony remains one of history's most haunting questions, a question that connects us to our own distant past and reminds us that not all stories have neat conclusions. The colonists of Roanoke, whether they lived, died, integrated, or vanished, left an indelible mark on our American consciousness. They represent the first great sacrifice of the colonial project, the first lives lost in pursuit of English dominion in the New World. This is Mr. Roney. The mystery of Roanoke challenges everything we believe about certainty and resolution in history. We tell ourselves that the past is settled, that history books contain all the answers, but Roanoke reminds us that some of our most fundamental questions about American origins remain unanswered. This mystery has shaped how I understand the fragility of human endeavor, the price of ambition, and the profound impact that indigenous peoples had in shaping colonial America. The colonists of Roanoke were not conquerors who triumphed over the land. They were vulnerable people who had to negotiate with those already here, and we may never know the outcome of that negotiation. If this story has moved you, if the mystery of Roanoke has ignited your curiosity about early American history, I urge you to subscribe to this channel for more deep dive documentaries on unsolved mysteries and hidden histories. Share this video with others who love American history and the great unanswered questions of our past. And please, leave a comment. What do you believe happened to the colonists of Roanoke? Your thoughts matter, and your engagement helps us continue bringing these forgotten stories to light. Thank you for joining me on this journey into America's deepest mystery.